So yeah, let's kick things off with Star Trek Picard season 2. So I'll just do the little preamble, and then Ricardo, you take it away, and then it'll just be you and Tracy bouncing back and forth, right? So I saw the first season. I appreciated it for what it was, though. It was not a show that I recapped, to be honest, and and again, to be honest, is really not a show that I remembered. It wasn't something that I hated. I was like, all right, we bringing back such a beloved character, of course, played by the great Patrick Stewart, right? But yeah, I remember you, Ricardo, having issues with that season, right? And I
Right.
thought, well, first season jitters, all right, man. Well, basically season two they'll fix all that, and then you'll get like a stellar season. But you were telling me during its run that it wasn't going good at all, right? So I
Right.
am just like curious as to why this happened, or is it that the problems of the first season just weren't fixed to begin with, right?
Right.
So I think that's all the pre-rambling I could do right now, Tread. So Ricardo, take it away. Picard, man,
Well,
season
so
two. What
so
what what, what went on, buddy?
so they somehow managed it. They somehow managed it, but season two is worse than season one, right? And
What?
in fact, I'm gonna go as far as, yeah, in my opinion, it's worse than season one, and not only that, that it's probably the worst season of Star Trek ever, in my opinion. None of it worked. None of it. Quick shout out to somebody who I'm not sure if he want me to shout him out, but like he absolutely nailed the issue. And this is a guy who does defend Kurtzman era Trek. I defend Kurtzman era Trek, but this dude was ripping the show a new asshole every episode going up because he's reviewing it and saying how bad it was, how much of a mess it was, how much it doesn't work. This is a guy called Steve Shives, right? Generally defends Kurtzman era Trek. He thinks the Kurtzman era Trek is mostly fine. Generally defends Discovery, gives its problems. But he has been ripping Picard season two a new asshole, and it deserves it. And he coined a term, which I completely agree with. He coined a great term for what was going on in Picard season two. He called it homeopathic storytelling, right? I completely agree. So if anyone knows what homeopathy is, it's a form of false medicine where if you dilute something, it does increase its potency. That's the medicine. So it's complete bunk, total bullshit. And the same applies here. They did the exact same problem they had with season one. Now, season one was I thought season one was pretty bad. But season one failed mostly in the missed opportunity sense of the term, where it was an alright story that just didn't need to be 10 episodes long, right? And I think they was a little clumsy in terms of some of the execution and resolution to some things. But the main problem was you're telling a 3 episode story, something that could be a movie or 2 hour movie or something like that. You're telling that in ten hours, and it's just you're stretching it out. And yeah, I'm gonna kind of coin the term here, homeopathic storytelling. The fallacy that increases the length of the narrative increases its potency, right? People think you're telling a long story that somehow make it more important, and it's just pure fluff with no logic, no nonsense. All right, so let us get into what going on for season two and why it do work. So
Right.
apparently Picard, they get a message. So Picard on Earth, he minding the farm. He having some issues with love because he never really fall in love with somebody, which is a whole thing. He never had romance. All right, cool. You know, he had the women, but they kind of come and went for him. And then they get a message from apparently a Borg ship. It's apparently a Borg ship, and we learn it is a Borg ship later. That calling for Picard particularly, and then this person comes in and stabs like the ships and start to take over everything. And they get Picard orders a self-destruct because he can't have the Borg taking over these ships. So they order self-destruct. It was successful, but instead of all of them dying, all the main cast, right? This is Raffi, this is Seven of Nine, Rios, Elnor, and Picard himself. All of them get, and Jarati, right? All of them get sent to this parallel universe of the Federation, where it's not the mirror universe, but it's like an alternate version of the Federation, calling itself the Confederation. And in this universe, Seven of Nine is president of Earth, and she's like this dictator, and Picard is this like General Picard, and he uses horrible general, real nasty, and kill off a set of people, and how they show how he killed Gul Dukat and so on so. And then eventually they reveal that Q is up to all of this. So Q, for some reason, wanted to teach Picard a lesson, right? So they're doing, a classic episode of TNG called Tapestry, where he play an alternate lifestyle, and they may be doing a little bit of the final episode of TNG, right? And so it's about teaching him a lesson. So he in this alternate world, they go back in time, they have to change this alternate shitty world back to the Federation as they understand it. And that's the idea. So they're going back in time, a la Star Trek 4, right? So much like how Discovery tapped into Star Trek, a little bit of Star Trek 4 and Star Trek 1 for good results, right? Discovery Season 4 tapped into Star Trek 4 and Star Trek 1 in for good reasons and replicated that aesthetic and approach and themes well. This replicated that in all the wrong ways. So they're going back in time in the same way Spock went back in time in Star Trek 4. They have to change something, but they're not sure what exactly they have changed. And then they figure out, well, is something involving pollution and involving an ancestor of Soong. Because, Brent Spiner has to come back in this as another ancestor of his called Adam Soong. And then the person who played Sochi in season 1, she comes back as a distant daughter of Adam Soong. And none of it working, or is a total mess. And well, we could get into
so quick question, right? Quick
yes,
question.
I don't want to get into every plot hole and nitpicky kind of thing because my brain is record all this bullshit, like
right.
when it's ready. But we'll be here literally for fucking hours. If I have to
that's understandable. There's one question, right?
Right.
Whoopi Goldberg.
All right.
Sorry to this story.
Yes, right. So Guinan comes in and he meets Guinan, and Guinan, also Guinan comes in so Guinan, right, they're trying to like address the whole Guinan Q relationship because that was a thing from since season 2 of TNG, but they never really address it in this. So Guinan shows up, he talks to her, and then they go back in time again, meaning that they had to sort out that was part of the plot too. I don't remember every little thing because it's such a mess. None of it worked, right? I am sorry, none of it worked. Right, you know what it reminded me a little bit of? It reminded me of Star Trek Generations, where Star Trek Generations is a movie that had some decent emotional and humanistic conceits, right? But because the narrative is so clumsy and poorly executed, none of it lands, right? Completely wrong approach to this character, in my opinion. Look, I'm a Monday morning quarterback and bullshitter myself, right? So I'd be like, well, they should have do this with Picard, or they should have do that with Picard. But with this, I really feel confident that this is the wrong approach for Picard. Like, I have yet to meet a person who like legit like this or making it work for anything. I don't know anybody who liked this season 2 at all. But I'm sure I have somebody out there who might like it maybe. But
there's somebody in here. But,
okay, well, we'll talk. None of it works or makes sense logically at all. Like emotionally and thematically, there are ideas there. But because the logic of it's so dream space and make no sense, it's like, why was the logic of anything? None of it pays off. Like, they try to do some important things with Rios, because Rios get grabbed by ice. But it's like, do you want to resolve this? No, he just get rescued. So they just mentioned that he was locked up by ice. That's the argument. None of it. Like, so much of it. And then they do this whole thing with Jurati. Well, there's a big time loop, something going on, in the end, right? Spoiler, right? Involving Jurati and the Borg, and look, listen. What's the frustrating part about this is that all of the actors are so good in this, right? The execution when it comes to actually following instructions, perfectly fine. Everybody was good. Jurati in particular, because she had a whole running arc, right?
I love that whole
John Delancey and Brent Spiner. Right, it's actually kind of a shame that they didn't do more stuff back in the days of TNG, because pound for pound, John Delancey and Brent Spiner were the best in TNG, in my opinion, in my personal opinion. Right, I thought they were the best actors because they had to like nail conceits particularly well, right? And they bounced it off each other. It's like, oh yeah, Q and Data never really did stuff with each other, right? They could have done stuff, and seeing them bounce off each other this season, like, that was kind of a missed opportunity back in the past. Then Picard himself, they have a whole thing involving, well, okay, so they make a big deep cut in this, which had me kind of excited for a second, which is if you know who Gary 7 is, that is a big Star Trek deep cut, it was an old, I think it was a season 2 pilot for a show called Gary 7, and they used Star Trek as the backdoor pilot. So involving on the show. The show never got picked up as far as I know, but they referenced that as part of the universe of Star Trek. So they used Star Trek for a backdoor pilot for another sci-fi series called Gary 7. It never got picked up, but they brought it back as a reference point because one of the characters was kind of part of it, but connected to another character. And again, clumsy mess. Like it is so bad to me. Like none of it lands. None of the characters go. The logic of getting from point A to point B in terms of like what characters should be doing. Like poor Jerry Ryan. Holy shit, they completely wasted in this because she had nothing to do. In my opinion.
Wow.
She was just kind of a badass. Like she and Raffi, okay, so like season 1 of Discovery, the season 1 of Picard, They did a dumb rush thing they did from before, where all of a sudden all of a sudden Rafi and Seven was in a relationship, which I thought was pretty rushed because they just kind of like put that in really quick at the end.
I remember that. Yeah.
These characters talk to each other. So I thought, all right, at least this season they're gonna have them like talk to each other and they're gonna build that up. They barely talk to each other. All of it is just snark and a comedy routine. And then at the end they kind of kiss and like, all right, well, you waste my time with all of that and well. Elnor, I forget the actors play Elnor. Waste of time. Like again, they bring him in, they kill him off, they bring him back as a hologram for some reason. I'm like, all right, well, why that relevant? But
he's a security. He's the security program.
Yeah, but why him? Why is he the image for it? Is that or that's just what they think of? You see,
because fans.
And the hologram grab a sword because he grab a sword. Like, dude, it's a hologram. Why you what? Whatever. Okay, so the finale, the whole thing was a payoff. This finale, right? We finally reach episode 10. Literally, here's I'm gonna tell you a recommendation. You could literally just watch episode 10 and you will cover the entire season because it does a recap that covers the only important things. Let's just be clear about that. And then they resolve everything because the final stuff, again, much like with Star Trek Generations, good emotional and humanistic conceits and moments, but because none of it narrative-wise is felt pointless, it don't work. So just watch that final episode and you can literally just watch the final episode and you will understand the entire season. You will not be lost. I am certain of it. The finale now is some big space portal open and the time loop stuff sort itself out, right? I don't know if you want me to spoil the time loop stuff, but I'm going to spoil it. I don't care because it's so bad.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Jurati used the Borg Queen all along because she became the Borg Queen and they did that thing, which they telegraph multiple episodes ahead. And right. They go on, and then the Borg get all of them ships. That is what she was trying to do. She get all the ships to unite all the shields so they could block some space anomaly thing to blast another bunch of energy. And then they had the goal to not just resolve it, but leave it for the next season. So apparently they want to join the Federation because it's a space gate to open the portal. So it's like, wait, this relevant to the big space gate that was in season 1 with the weird squid robot aliens Reaper thing that they rip off from Mass Effect? Is that related? Don't know. No care. You have to wait till season 3. Holy shit, dude. Oh, and the most insulting thing was goddamn Will Wheaton. Oh my gosh. They had dude, Will we just take a lunch break to film this scene, Dread? The most low effort shit ever. It was so bad. That was a complete insult what they do there. Apparently now Will Wheaton, because that was a big thing in TNG, he was a traveler and he disappeared, but he came back for Nemesis for some reason. And he finished Starfleet, but he's still a traveler. And then apparently they connected to the Gary 7 people. Because again, Gary 7 is a whole thing of people just manipulate time. Again, interesting idea. They did nothing with. Whatever. Sorry. I'm going to give it the score of 1 out of 10. This was really bad. None of this worked in my opinion. It's totally incoherent. Here's how bad I found this. I was actually finding myself in agreement with the red letter media over goddamn Star Trek. That's how bad.
Shit. Right, so my question to you before we get to
Tracy. Tracy, he works now. Yeah. Yeah,
right, well, that's a quick question. And this is just the thing that just knowing at my brain for the time being, right? Is there a real reason to continue Picard's story? Because doesn't seem that for what you tell me, it doesn't seem like there's
here's bullshit. Here's how no smelling bullshit, right? So you're trying to tell me in the middle of the season they hyping something that's supposed to be coming for the next season? Why do that in terms of promotion? That's a weird thing. Literally, that was episode 5 or something like that. They announced, well, everybody else coming back from TNG. Everybody coming back. Geordi coming back. And, Dr. Crusher coming back. And Counselor Troy coming. Well, Counselor Troy and Tig was in season 1 and Riker. But the whole crew coming back. You'll wait till the end of the season. Let everybody kind of digest it. And then, drop it for No. Everybody coming back. I was like, that kind of weird. Whatever. It's just Brent Spider coming back, so you're probably gonna play another soon, or maybe Law, because that's the only android they never referenced so far. So whatever. You gotta watch season 3. Look, it's not that the show going on indefinitely. They say the show ending fine. So I'll watch it when it come out. But this was pretty bad. This was such a squandered opportunity. And I could get into why I think so, right? But the problem is that I was getting the main reasons is a sort of Star Trek gatekeeping and my nostalgia and what I thought they should have done with the character. I ain't gonna get into all of that. As a story as it was, didn't work whatsoever, in my opinion. Anyway, That's my
Right.
last point to it. One other thing.
Sure. I understand. All right. So Tracy, your chance to agree or disagree.
Well, it's kind of funny talking about the idea of the Star Trek gatekeepers because I remember when Discovery came out and everyone, well, not everyone, that's a lie, but there were a good few people, especially old Caucasian men with beards who I used to watch on YouTube, and then I realized no. There was a whole lot about what Star Trek is or what it isn't and how it should be, and that same thought process about how do we this is not my Star Trek, that kind of vibe. For me, coming into season 2 of Picard, I gotta tell you, first of all, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I can't say that I went over the moon. There were parts of it, like the backstory with his mother. I felt like that could have been truncated a little bit, shortened a little bit. I understood the rationale.
I thought that was one of the stronger parts of this, like all the stuff with the mother. Now again, it was missing stuff because it's like, well, again, they get James Callis and they waste James Callis in this. Holy shit! But
when I saw Bolter, I was like, oh my god.
I was thinking, James Callis, Bolter is the father. I like, go now. We getting some scenes, and two of them was bouncing off each other decent, right? That was some solid acting. I ain't saying no, but the writing didn't make any sense. And another problem I had with it is that where's Robert in all of this? The way they make it out as if, well, Picard is our only child all of a sudden. Where is Robert? They could have, you see, I said I missed stuff. Anyway, go ahead, Tracy. Sorry about that.
My hilarity with it, there were two storylines that I quite enjoyed. And one that I really wasn't too keen on. Let's start with the one I wasn't keen on. Raffi being... Like, I felt like Raffi could have been explored a little bit more. Not even the relationship. The idea of how Raffi is very much impulsive. We got that in season 1. She's impulsive, that kind of stuff. But there was too much of the angst that wasn't necessarily going anywhere. So I didn't really lock onto that.
Here's the problem with Raffi. So in season 1, one of the big problems with Raffi, but I thought they explained this reasonably well. A lot of people shit on this, but I thought this made sense, where Raffi was living in the wilderness and she was apparently poor and complaining about Picard. I thought in the context of what was going on with her, I thought that made sense. Because it was not so much about her being poor, she was a conspiracy theorist, and hence she was being cut out of the discussion from society. Right, that makes sense.
So then when you bring her into season 2...
Here's the problem. She's supposed to be so hung up on Elnor, right? And I thought, wait, when you hype up with Elnor in season 1, or they kind of talk to each other and then attach. So all of a sudden, she's big mother figure to Elnor. And I know they addressed that in season 1 with her actual biological son. This Lodgina. But they didn't really make a call back to that per se. I mean, that was inferred. So I kind of got, all right, she kind of tied up with Elnor, and then they kill off Elnor. So like, all right, well, she's so hung up because Elnor dead. That's the only thing that made sense about that. That's the only part of this that works in that sense. I get it, Listen, I understand what they're going for, but the execution is so bad.
They explained, like, I could understand the like, there's an episode, what was it, episode 6, 7, somewhere on there, where she's talking about the idea of she realizes that she manipulates everybody because 7 of 9 was talking about that whole thing. But that was one of the storylines that I felt like, in terms of Raffi's story, it could have been brought out a great deal more, and that was my issue. I had more fun whenever Jurati and the Borg Queen was on screen. Right. Now here's the thing. I remember reading, there was this article, and then they did one of these little featurette things there where they were talking about in each character's arc or whatever, there is the idea of a love story. And even with Jurati and the Borg Queen, it's not a traditional love story in a Borg meets girl kind of way, but it really is this whole, like, okay, we both acknowledge the fact that we're all alone and nobody understands us. Here's how we can work together, and there's a bit of again manipulation and that kind of stuff. I enjoyed seeing Jurati's turn, because after her, her take in season 1, watching her turn in season 2, especially that shot of the whole walking down the street in the red dress, barefoot, becoming fully Borg, or rather more Borg, that was joy to me. Now, I'll tell you,
Alison Pill, praise be, she was good. I ain't saying no. She was real good, right? And you really get a sense of she feeling like a different person. you know, because it's when she had to play the Borg Queen, but then she played herself. I ain't saying no, you know, brother. But narrative wise, none of it added up. It didn't make any sense logically. And again, the logic of it in terms of the physics, like, okay, if it's the Borg Queen, why does she need to leave the ship to go and eat batteries somewhere? You know, you have a replicator, right? Like,
yeah.
You have a replicator. The replicator could have done all of that shit. It had a moment that made no sense to me. Again, this is the science nerd part of me. So they was on the ship. She and Picard was on the ship, and they're feeling cool, right? And like, wait, what? How are you feeling cool on the ship? Unless the Borg Queen herself was actually like dropping the temperature, literally anything can become a heat pump. A heat pump is one of the easiest machines to build. We accidentally make heat pumps all the time. Hey, your phone too hot. Hey, TV too hot. Your cars get hot. So you feeling cool on a starship? You see? Just these are logical things that just for them to get back into the house. And like all these old weird little logical jumps, like they drop them off in LA, but they decide to go to France, and they're using the transporter still somehow, but the Gary 7 people, you see how muddled everything else, like where everybody should be and how? None of it working. Whatever. Anyway, last point. I don't know up to Matthew how much time you want to
here's the thing. I will just wrap this by saying this. A long time ago, like I was, like I'm not a huge, but I am a Star Trek boy. However, my loyalties always lie with the mythology of Star Wars. Anybody who knows me knows this. Over the course of the years, I realized we started to get, what do you call this thing? We started to separate ourselves between Star Trek and Star Wars and who was better and that kind of stuff. So when I see a series that reminds me, and yeah, I'll throw in the idea of nostalgia. But when I see a series that harkens back to the memories that I had when I used to sit down relatively religiously and watch like Next Generation, or even when TTT would bring the old episodes of Kirk and that kind of stuff. The only one that I never really got into, to be honest, was the one with the guy who eventually becomes was an NCIS in New Orleans. I can't remember his name.
Enterprise.
Enterprise of itself. Bakula.
Yeah,
I saw like 3 episodes and I was like, I can't with this, and I never bothered. So all I'm saying is, from Star Wars boy who comes back into Trek, I sat down there and I watched the 2 seasons of Picard, and I thought this was actually like it felt good, it felt solid. There were certain arcs, that I think could have been cut short a little bit, like again with the Jurati thing, and even with Picard. I don't know if it's because, and forgive me for saying it like this, I don't know if it's because Sir Patrick has gotten older or anything of the sort, but this, like the long 5-7 minute speeches that he would promulgate, I was like, he doesn't need to have that. And I also felt like, even though so in season 2 we get to meet a young, oh God, what's her name? It's going out of my brain.
Suchi.
Whoopi Goldberg's character.
Right. A young Guinan, right.
So we get to meet a young Guinan. No, I've always loved that whole dynamic of she's a demon. No, she actually knows what's going on. The relationship between Q and Guinan. So to see a young Guinan who has been there on the planet, like at first it was one of those things, because I really thought Whoopi was going to be there for like the whole thing, the way how they hyped up the idea that Whoopi's coming back. But seeing this young Guinan, at first it took me out, and then it took a little while. I was like, oh, okay. And I actually dug that whole scene. There was a little piece coming on towards the end, I think it was episode 8, with the guy who was that whole interrogation, and the logic of, and that one I will concede could have been done a little bit better, was the idea of the Vulcans were here before, and they tried to mind wipe the guy and all that kind of stuff. Because, first contact is still first contact.
Okay, so all of that was done. Okay, so there's an actual episode of Enterprise where the Vulcans
where they can,
Right, called which is by Carpenter Street, I think. I forget the name of the episode.
Because I to be honest with you, like I remember First Contact, but there's some parts of the lore, because I sat down there and I was like, okay, so you're basically saying they're ancient aliens, like they were here before, because I know they were just like big brothers, kind of like just watching us, being like, okay, now you're also ridiculous to interact with until you started.
Again, there's an episode of Enterprise with T'Pol playing an ancestor of hers. About that story where they just crash to Earth and then they leave. Similar idea.
Same kind of, okay, cool.
Here's the problem. That guy, the actor they got, that guy was in Voyager as a time traveler, So I thought it was the same dude, I'm like, oh shit, they're doing Temporal Starfleet. So, and Temporal Starfleet jump into this and it's like, wait, they're getting the Gary 7 people and the Temporal Starfleet people. So it's some big time travel chicanery, pylon that happening in 2024 now. I thinking, wait, we're going to get something interesting. What I thought they was going to do too is because it's the year 2024, they're going to reference one of the best Star Trek episodes of DS9 with Gabriel Bell. I thought we was going to get the Bell Riots as a reference or something like that. Nope, none of that, whatever. But I will
say though that this century, watching them come into 2024 was deeply depressing. I was like, oh my god, this is
right. So they do the Star Trek 4 thing, coming back in our time to show how shitty we is, right?
Yeah.
I get that. Right? They even had the guy from Star Trek 4 with the radio, same dude, same actor.
That was not necessary, but
Yeah, but it's like whatever. Like I get it. It's all for the little gag. It's fine. Listen. As I said, all my complaints would be a lot of morning quarterbacking. Personally, there's my last point, and then we can move on. Personally, I really felt they should have done Picard the ambassador. Right? We didn't really get that. They kind of did that, and they didn't really get that. I felt we could have gotten more of that. And then I felt we could have gotten Picard the archaeologist. Right? Picard had a mentor called Galen. Right? He had an archaeology career. He could have easily been an archaeologist. In fact, a premier archaeologist instead of a Starfleet captain. We could have gotten archaeology stuff. Give us the romance and the stone stuff. Here's the big thing. And there's one of the big missing opportunities. Again, there's a ton of missed opportunities, but right. You're talking about Picard having a missing love, right? He don't know woman. What happened to Vash? Where Vash? Bring back Vash. He and Vash could have come back. They do another romance and the stone with 2 old people. It'll be funny. It'll be good. Again, this is me morning quarterback here, right? In fact, you're gonna make a good joke with it. Well, remember it had the Jat Vash from season 1, and somebody confused that with Vash, and that would be like a little joke, and then you make it as a little gag, so they could rope Picard into that because a little miscommunication, a little comedy error or something. Again, they just be writing a script in my head. It was bad. This was really bad. 1 out of 10 doesn't work. It's frustrating. They could have gone a different direction with this. I thought they did the wrong thing. Totally wrong approach to the character. But I just Monday morning quarterback in terms of the actual enjoyment of the story, I had almost none. It didn't work. It was a mess. I want to know how much COVID affected this, to be honest, because a lot of it felt like COVID stuff. Like, they had to shoot this quick. Whatever.
Right.
Moving on.
I'm on the opposite side. I mean, I don't have the Game of Thrones season 8 level of Venom in terms of how I feel about Picard, to be honest. But I'm gonna give it a 7. I'm giving it a 7 out of 10 because for me it was a solid watch. I loved everything. Anytime the Borg Queen was on screen, I was there for it. Anytime Soong was on screen, I was there for it. Anytime Q was on screen with his whole becoming human, becoming mortal, I was there for it. The Giardi, the Raffi, the Picard speeches, and maybe even bits with his mother, I felt I could have had a little less of. But yeah, 7 out of 10 for me for season 2. I'm going to be back for season 3.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch. Of course, I'm gonna watch season 3. But yeah, this is the exact opposite for me. Like it was just none of it worked, and it just in my opinion just severely squandered opportunity. And this is from somebody who generally defends season 1 of Discovery. Like season 1 of Discovery to me was just more, missed through line, solid through line, but just missed execution. This is a miss on both fronts. Anyway. Next.
Right. So let's talk about some great Star Trek now. And let me actually do it if you all don't mind, right? So not gonna go too heavy into the synopsis of the series premiere of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Well, I guess Ricardo, you could dive in a little bit deeper, right? But I'll just go off a first impression, right? So this in particular excited me because for one thing, this was gonna be, a series where we'll see more of Ethan Peck's Spock, right? But also you're gonna see more of Christopher Pike, played by Anson Mount.
Yeah, we call him Handsome Monk from now on.
Oh God. Yeah, who basically we saw ever so often. I think it's from season 2, I believe it was, of Star Trek Discovery, right? But I mean, of course, he is an iconic character. He is part of Star Trek lore and whatnot, right? And what how this show pretty much kicks off now is pretty much with him more or less retired. He's on this planet with this.
No, he's not retired, but.
He's not retired. Oops.
He's not retired. What happens is that because of the conceit of the story, he looking like he's thinking about it, and he just kind of not really going through. He kind of going through something, and we know why. Right. But he can't really talk to anybody about it because it's classified. And that's a kind
Right,
of
right, right.
yeah.
Okay,
But
understood. And
yeah,
I just have to let you all know for those who listening to this, I am a Trekkie in training, right? So for me, I just I'm almost done with the second season of TOS, and
okay,
reason being with me watching TOS is because of how much I enjoyed and pretty much loved season 3 of Star Trek Discovery
right,
because of how it was tapping back to good old fashioned Star Trek. It really felt like it was tapping into that authenticity, right? But
right,
yeah, with this show here, basically, so we follow Pike now. He's pretty much been called by this Starfleet admiral who's played by Adrian Holmes, aka
right,
Uncle Phil of Belly. I was like,
right.
what, you in
Yeah.
this? What?
Yeah,
Okay, right.
that is a very mild controversy involved in that, but yeah, we will talk about it.
Okay, okay, okay.
Yeah,
Well, I'm assuming because he is an actual character. Well, he is part of
yeah,
of Star
well,
Trek world. Okay.
it's because of race. It's because of race. Like us
Oh,
cut it,
oh,
it's
okay.
because of
All right.
race. Yeah,
I
let
got
go.
you.
Yeah,
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 yeah, yeah. So he's called now basically to go back to the USS Enterprise to investigate this mission that
right,
more or less kind of just stopped halfway. That's all we'll see, right? But
right,
it involves this particular planet where there are these two warring groups basically,
right,
and it may involve some tech that well, once again, which is true, which is very reminiscent of Star Trek, may have come from some other era or century or whatnot, right? So of course Pike has to go to investigate, right? Spock is calling as well too. He has to, well, pretty much
right,
he has to leave his wife, right? Well,
right.
or were they married? I think they were married, right?
No, well, I think they're about to be.
But they
I
were
don't think
about
they
to.
got
They were
married
about to.
yet. I don't think they got married yet, but she proposed to him. This is when they proposed. So
Right, right, right.
this is a callback to TOS. He's like, this is when they got
Yes,
married. Great.
yes. I was
Right.
going to bring that up. Yes, because
Yeah.
T-Pring, yes,
To
because
Pring. Right. Yeah.
yeah, T-Pring, right? And I remember that exact episode. I remember
Right.
really enjoyed it,
As a
even though it
classic
was campy. Yeah,
yeah, it's a classic episode, but it's great.
yeah.
Yeah.
It was fantastic though, and
Yeah.
slight little detour here at the very end of the episode. Now, as you do with these Star Trek shows, right? They give it like this full trail of what to expect, and there's a
Right.
shot involving Spock, in a battle, and I'm assuming I don't
Right.
think it's going to be an exact remake of that episode, but it looks very reminiscent of
Right.
when he had to fight for his wife.
But
And
that's the thing,
that stuff.
To Pring was really like they really show the strains of the relationship in that, because I forget the old episode, but it's what's the name of that old one with where she was kind of wanted to figure out a way to divorce him. Like,
Yes,
she was
which
a nice
was
little trick.
funny
So
too. But
you see
yeah.
you see the strains, and it's because she was part of Starfleet. It's like, yeah, they addressed that in this first episode in those few moments.
Yeah,
Yeah, go
but
ahead.
the actress who they got to play her though, she was great
Great.
though, like great
Yeah.
look, everything, right? And they got
Right.
the volcanisms done, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, point is though, this is just him more or less kind of getting himself back into shape now, and more well, pretty much being as captain, right? And now, they're off to this adventure pretty much, right? We're introduced to new crew members, well, at least people that we're now being introduced. Well, I guess Ricardo, you'll tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Like for example, Lan, she is
Right.
well, who's played by Christina Chong. I know that she is related to Khan, or
Right, right.
the infamous Khan, right?
Right.
But I guess you could go in deep into because she gives a little bit of a backstory, and it sounds very
Right.
grim. But
Right.
you could tell me how it fits with Khan's backstory, right?
Right.
We see a young Uhura, right?
Right,
And
right.
the actress who they got to play her, won't lie though, she had it looked down, but she
Mhm.
like, of course, she does not look legit like the original actress who played
Yeah, as I
Uhura.
say,
But as far as I
as I
knew
say,
Uhura, it's like yeah.
yeah, as I say, you're watching Star Trek for the plot, right? And the plot is Uhura, right? So
I know, right?
yeah.
I know, right?
Mm.
But yeah, but just to jump into the review here, man. I absolutely enjoyed this though. This was a strong start to what I hope will be, a great season, man. And I say this too because as we mentioned before with Picard, right? Sometimes you could start off really strong and then kind of just lose focus and then just fall off the rails, right? But what I love here with this show here, well, so far is how it feels like it's going back to the old school, but it's not like doing a remake of it, right? Because it could have just been easy to just do the greatest hits, you know what I mean? Like case
Right.
in point, James
Well-
T. Kirk is there, but it's not like, okay, well, we're just gonna do over all episodes, and that's why I assume they're not gonna redo the whole episode with Spock basically having
Well,
to
right.
fight
So all of
for
this,
the
all of this
T-Pring again.
occurring, all this occurring like a good, 10 to 15 years before the events of TOS, right? It's a hot minute. It's
And
like a
I
good 10
believe
years
that
at least.
this is between seasons 2 and 3 of Discovery, right?
Right,
Because
right.
they mentioned the
Right,
wolf,
right. The
right?
reference,
Right.
yeah, right. So yeah, personally, I thought it was great. Right, really solid out of the great. Basically, they did, in my opinion, they did play the hits. Like they play the hits as to why it is people like the aesthetic of Star Trek and why it works.
Right.
I'll say it actually felt more like ST09, J.J. Abrams' first film. It felt kind of like that actually at times, right? Especially with
I was kind of concerned,
right.
because because I really enjoyed that film, right?
Yeah.
I know diehard fans have the issues with the Kelvin timeline or whatever,
Right.
but I really enjoyed that first film, right?
Me
But
too.
I was worried that it was just going to be all style and pizzazz and okay, this is for non-fans, sorry, so we had to throw a lot of lens flare, a lot of action, but here it was like. No, we telling we story, but
right.
we keeping it at a very even pace. We exciting you, we keeping you entertained, but at the same time reminding you, yo, this is Star Trek. This is what makes it work. This is why we've been doing this for decades now. You know?
Well, they had to catch a balance, right? You had to catch a balance. At the end of the day, you had to cater to fans. Like in my opinion, the first JJ film did that reasonably well, right? It caught a balance. Its purpose, its main purpose was to get butts in seats. That's the main purpose. Right, I make the joke. J.J. Abrams is the tow truck driver. Right, you know the franchise was dying, almost dead. They say, oh look, we had to rehaul this, pull it out, send to the shop. J.J. Abrams was the man who pulled it out. Right, and that's how this felt. This felt like they're pulling it out. And listen, this is not an insult to Kurtzman era Trek. I have been enjoying most of Kurtzman era Trek. Right, and I make a joke. I call it the nostalgia rope or dope, where what you do is you do experimental stuff to rope in new people who are not into Star Trek. Right, and would have not been to Star Trek because of the fan base and the gatekeeping. You do things deliberately, for lack of a better term, you don't know if it's deliberately, but the point is you decide to change the aesthetic so you could rope in people who not into it, and then you bring it back into what is familiar with everybody who's now the new fan base. So in the end net sense, you have a bigger fan base pool for people to watch, right? And look, it had to be working because Trek have a bunch of shows on TV that are getting greenlit, right? So unless all of these shows get cancelled and they're hiding a certain money or something like that. No, as far as I know, Discovery is popular. It's doing well, right, for the most part. And it's kind of like what Mandalorian is for Star Wars, right? You pull back everybody and so this, right? It's old thread. It's the old thread ground. I'm not pretending that this is some new or brilliant or anything like that. What they do is that it's what we're familiar with, just very well executed, right? That's the main thing with this. They play the hits. Yeah. They play the hits and it works. Right. That's my quick review, and then you could continue.
Sure. Well, actually, let's flip it around though, because you're the Trekkie. I actually thought that you could dive a little bit deeper and tell me what. No,
not really. It have nothing deep to dive in here with this. This is uncut Star Trek in terms of what you're familiar with, but also good storytelling, right? Because the problem with JJ is that it was what you're familiar with, but when you think about it, that's not what the show actually was. This merged it, right? The reason why I think Ethan Peck as Spock is better than Quinto as Spock is because Ethan Peck is more accurate to what Spock was actually like. To me, Quinto always felt like a kind of facsimile of Spock, right? And here's an example: the voice, right? Ethan Peck nailed the voice, right? Quinto never nailed the voice. Quinto always had this kind of nasally kind of sounding thing of what people think Spock sounds like. You see the difference, right?
Right.
Stuff like that. Anyway, I thought the humor, it felt like STO9, especially with the humor, most of the stuff, especially with the stuff in Nurse Chapel.
Yes.
Mount as Pike, Romaine as Una, and Pekka Spock was on point as expected. Lan is the big breakout character for me. I thought she was great. She actually more reminiscent of Tasha Yar to me than any Khan thing. Like they connected to Khan, but I don't think she directly connected to Khan. I have my own fan theory as to what's going on there, because the story had to explain what going on with her, if she's connected, how she ties to Khan at all, right? She have the name, so let's see why. And well, she's connected to the Gorn, which we never get to see much Gorn in Trek. Right, we have a few appearances. You have that one very goofy episode with Kirk fighting the Gorn captain, but that's it, right? But the Gorn's supposed to be pretty vicious, so I think we're going to get a lot of Gorn in this season. The big catch me off guard was Sam Kirk. Wow, didn't expect him to bring in Samuel Kirk, right? Kirk's brother, right?
Yes.
In the old show, it was the character's name is really George Samuel Kirk, right? He's the son of George Kirk, and right, he's son of George Kirk, right? So he's George Samuel Kirk, and it was basically William Shatner with a mustache. It was silly. But this is his brother. They get the guy. They get some. I don't know the actor's name, but they kind of do a rope. They do a little misdirection for me there, because they was hyping James coming in at some point in season 2, I was like, we don't really need James. I don't really need him. But then they was hinting at Kirk on the roster, and they name drop him a couple times in the episode. And then this character shows up. I was like, all right, that's a nice catch. And yeah,
here's the funny thing is, I actually thought that was James. I
No, it's
didn't
not
know
James.
that was his brother.
No, it's his brother. Samuel
Yeah.
Kirk. Yeah. Samuel Kirk. So like, all right, and he was a science officer. It's like, yeah, and he working under Spock. So like, I like that. So it's gonna be Spock and Kirk. That's a nice twist to that. That's simple. Just quick rating. The pictures, the pacing was pitch perfect. One of the more consistent issues.
I agree. Yeah.
One of the more consistent issues with Kurtzman era Trek, and again, this is not necessarily making it a bad show, but it is a risk that it took, and they had to pay for the risk, which is uneven pacing on average, right? Almost all of these shows had that uneven pacing. For better or for worse, Discovery was riddled with this, especially season 2 and 3 Discovery. Even season 4 Discovery had a lot of bad pacing issues, but it still paid off for what it was. But mostly because of the serialized narrative was the issue. And I think because this show is going to be more episodic content, it feels more amicable in terms of the pacing. That's just how I feel about it. Yeah, really strong start. I'm loving it. A very strong start, right? So I really, really love this premiere. They play the hits, right, but the trick is they didn't do anything new. It's not new. This is Mandalorian, right?
Yeah.
What Mandalorian is right. You're telling a new space, but you cater to the aesthetic and you cater to them. And it's a rope-a-dope. It's a strategy. This is a big strategy that works. Star Wars did it. It worked. They doing it now. It worked. They're roping everybody who wasn't a bit familiar with the old stuff with the new content. Say, hey, this feeling strange and new, and then they bring it back. That's it.
Yeah, you're right actually, because I was seeing like just little echoes of things that I saw before, like the two nations warring against each other is very reminiscent of a particular episode this season 2. I forgot the name of it, where it involves some sort of bomb, some sort of explosive device, and it was trying to figure out where it was and all that stuff, and he was trying to that kind of stuff.
The plot was good. It was a simple plot because it paid off end of season 2. The whole 0 point thing, I like that. But how they explain it, of what happened and the consequences of that was interesting. Because some people was complaining how that was kind of implausible that they would come up with a warp bomb. And I was like, no, if you think about it, it makes some sense. Like, it felt like a stretch at first, right? But then when you think about it, from their perspective, that whole event at the end of season 2 of Discovery was a fireworks show in terms of information. So when them watching that with the telescopes, and it was a lesser than light year away, so like only in a few months they would have seen that information, right? It would have corroborated their own conjectures and speculations in mathematics and physics. So a technological leap like that makes sense. It feels plausible. And because it's a bomb, that's the simplest thing you can make with new technology, right? Bomb first, propulsion second. They work that out and they run that in the script. Solid script. Makes sense. I like what they do with that.
Yeah, agreed. So I agree with you like totally actually. Again, like I said before, this was a strong opening, right? The casting was great throughout, man. I mean, Anson Mount, he shines as Christopher Pike. I love that they include his relevance in the Star Trek lore, with mentions of the menagerie, right, and to extend the cage, right, especially with this subplot involving him seeing the future and knowing what will happen to him, right. I love the moment where he shows what happened basically to Earth and how it led to World War III and all that kind of stuff. I was looking out, I was like, all right, I wonder if they will mention like the kind of shit that we went through the past couple of years. Right. No, there was just a war happened, and then
Well, they kind of did that. They kind of did that because they show some.
They show a couple of protests, but it was
protest footage, and they show it is the recent Trump election vote stuff. They do that.
Oh yes, they hinted that because they showed the White House. I was like, I see what y'all did there.
But they had a sign thing, the vote now. That was like the recent 2020 people who think that the 2020 election was a fake. So it's like it's all of that they play into it. They're like, look, they're on their soapboxes. Trek always on their soapbox, But Picard's soapbox was clumsy. This soapbox was just better executed. And again, it's all about execution, right? Not about the ideas, not knocking the ideas, just execution and how you frame everything. That's it.
Right.
That's different.
And without spoiling how it ends, though, I love similar to old school Star Trek. It's always like we just gonna guide you guys, but we're not gonna tell all you what to do, right? We just kind of come to investigate what's going on and to kind of suggest something, but all they're on their own, right? And then we get this really interesting montage where we see how influenced they've been by the Enterprise. I thought that was really, really fascinating. I guess all the diehard Trekkies could be like, I can look at it and find it a little over the top, but because of how they show it gradually, it's like, that kind of makes sense, you know. Like,
Yeah.
you know, they see this thing for the first time, it's like, oh my god, and you
Yeah,
know, like
blow your mind.
literally, it just changed their whole lives. Like
Yeah,
literally, you see
exactly.
it in that
And
montage.
they address the big, well, the elephant in the room is, which is when if you undermine general order number one, because they had a nice little joke in it. He said they're going to be calling the prime directive, and it's like, that'll never stick. That was funny. But they had a moment where they say, look, how to address the Admiral Robert April. He does say, oh, they figure out a plot, a little loophole for them to get away, which is because it connected to the 0 Point incident, and Starfleet is officially denying the existence of it. They get away with it, right? Because it's classified, right? So them doing what they're doing, you know, is also classified because it connected to that event. I like that. Simple way to stitch it away. Simple. Right, again, this is not the best Star Trek ever. It's not the highlight of Star Trek ever. It's not the apex of Star Trek. It's not the best Star Trek ever or anything like that. It's just solid storytelling, good pacing.
That's right. Yeah, bingo.
You do it within one episode because you have to pace it out. That's the main thing. Anyway.
And as you see that, I mean, like, you know, pacing was just great, top to bottom, right? I love the chemistry between Pike and Spock. Like when they're on screen, it totally works, right? And then even there's a moment where you see them bounce off with Lan as well too, and that totally worked as well. And I'm really curious to see where her story goes, right? Uhura, like I said before, you know, just great screen presence, just great screen presence, that's all I'll say. But I'm really curious to see like how, like, where her story arc will go and how that will lead into TOS, right? And you know, just see the new characters. Well, just have those in quotes. Like, you know, Christine Chappell. Well, you'll tell me if that's an old character or not.
She was okay. So everybody was saying, they should have make a joke by having Rebecca Romijn also play Christine Chappell, because that's what happened to Majel Roddenberry. Well, Majel Barrett at the time. Majel Barrett played number one. The studio, because of sexism, and it probably had a lot of other behind the scenes chicanery that went down. With that, she effectively got fired as thing, and they wrote a character out more or less, and then reshot the pilot more or less to have her. But the actress stuck around, and she played Nurse Chapel, so it was the same actress, Majel Roddenberry. A lot of people say they should have made that joke by having her also play Majel Roddenberry, but no, they got a new actress with. I thought she was great. The character you didn't mention, and this was a big surprise too, is Dr. Mbenga. Wow, surprise. They bring Dr. Mbenga. It's like, oh, that's a real deep cut, because everybody thought he was going to get, I forget the other doctor's character name. He was going to come.
I had in mind he was an old character. You know, like,
he's a callback too. Yeah. So, and they do a little bit of change, they do a lot of little retconning and updating for this. Like, so the retcon Dr. Mbenga, like, it does his rank, did the rank go up or down? Because he didn't have as high a rank in TOS. That he has in this, so did he get demoted for some reason? We ain't sure, right? And then involving Khan, the eugenics wars happens later, right? In because eugenics wars we know happened in the 90s, but it happens later in the Trek universe. This is always a problem for Trek, right? Trek have a actual history and end up messing up the show itself. So you had to do a lot of weird chicanery or reframe what you saw in the storytelling. In this, it's same thing with Picard. Picard had a reference to Khan in the ending, which was kind of lame, but whatever. But they had a reference to Khan in the ending. So they changed it up to according to that. So you don't know. It's whatever.
Okay. Also, I mean, as this is a Star Trek TV series now, this looks amazing. Though watch it on a little 19-inch monitor, but it still looked just impressive as hell, man. Cinematography was great. Sound design was great. The music, I have to touch on the music as well too. I love that. I just love the score in particular, man. From Jeff Russo yet again. And I love at the very end where you just heard that. And you know, you even hear like the little bongos that you hear from the old Star Trek team. I was like, all right, Russo, I see you. I love that, right? Also, just from capturing that feel that yes, it is. It's like old school Star Trek, but it's done in a new fashion. I love that. Even right down to just changing up the opening narration from TOS, right? So you hear what they say, where no one has gone before, as opposed to where no man has gone before.
Well, they changed that since TNG, yeah. So.
Okay, all right.
They changed that since TNG. So,
they didn't know.
Yeah.
I am curious to hear what the diehard Trekkies would think about Hit It. What Pike does, you know what I mean?
Right.
Because I know you all have this issue with Burnham's Let's Fly. I have no problem with Let's Fly.
I like Let's Fly. The Bruce Greenwood version had Punch It, which I liked. I like Punch It, so I like it. It's fine.
Yeah. Right. So in closing, this was a great introductory episode, man. I can't wait to see where the show goes next. Oh yeah, we forgot to mention what was the issue with Adrian Holmes's character, Robert April? Like what he was white, right? Or what was the issue?
Right, yeah. Oh, right. It's a small issue. So Robert April he made no appearances in the franchise, live action wise, but he made one small appearance in the animated series, the original animated series.
Oh, weird. Okay.
Made one appearance in one episode called, I think, what was the name of the episode? Counterclock Incident, I think. That was Counterclock Incident? I think so. Yeah, he shows up in that, and he was a white guy. That's it. The character was originally described to look like Gene Roddenberry, effectively. So yeah, they just changed the race of the character, so people was kind of mad and like, oh, okay. The usual douchebags mad at it. So like, all right, well,
how could you cast Uncle Phil?
stay mad, right?
As a Starfleet admiral.
Anyway, the thing is, the animated series always had that kind of weird soft canon to everything. It was never really like it. Sometimes it's alpha, but sometimes it's beta, and they kind of pick and choose with that because it's still in that middle domain. I'm in a camp that actually puts the animated series as generally alpha, but yeah, you don't have to have a big inflatable enterprise. But then I have no problem having a giant Spock, so that's fine. Whatever. Yeah. Anyway, right. I don't really care about it. Moving on.
Yeah. Well, neither me. But thanks for the info, though, right? So yeah, rating wise, strong 4 out of 5, man. This impressed the hell out of me, and this is coming from somebody who is not even the biggest Trekkie in the world. Like I still was able to appreciate it. I appreciate the callbacks and like just hearing that there were even more deep cuts in this and Easter eggs and whatnot. Now I was like, yeah, you know what I mean?
Right.
So. Yeah, great time to be a Star Trek fan. Oh, and last thing before we move on, finally though, well, I don't know if they're doing this if they did this in Picard season 2, but now they're doing something similar, to like what what Star Wars does, where they have their brand that shows up at the beginning of every episode. So I saw that with Star Trek. I was like, all right, cool. Yeah. I like this finally. And well, you could tell me what you thought about it, if anything. That show right before CBS All Access too. I'm like, okay,
yeah,
all right. Because normally you would think it's like the network first or the studio first, and then the brand comes afterwards. But now it's like, Star Trek first.
Well, yeah, exactly. Star Trek is the brand, is it? Rating, I give it a 5 out of 5. As an episode,
nice.
It works. Yeah. The show have more stuff to establish. Like we didn't get the engineer, for example, right? He's supposed to be Aina, if I remember correctly. We haven't gotten other characters in depth like Ortegas, for example. We don't really know much about Ortegas. We just know she's a pilot. That's it. So we'll see some Ortega stuff maybe because she's looking cool. Yeah, we'll see. But this is excellent for me. 5 out of 10. 5 out of 5.
5 out of 5.
Yeah,
right.
5 out of 5. It's really well done.